What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Flippin' Pucks and Chuckin Knucks. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Danny P. Here on the podcast, we cover hockey, politics, and living down here in the South. Alongside with me, as always, we got Dougie. How's it going today, Dougie?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, Danny. It's been a crazy couple weeks, not only in life in general, but especially for some of our Canadian friends up north. Did you see what was been going on with Justin Trudeau and the trucks and everything that he's been doing today?
It's been sort of just ludicrous. It's like something out of a George Orwell novel, you know? It's like we're looking at 1984 right now.
Love the
Yeah, for those who,
reference.
yeah, for those who don't know, obviously everyone's heard about the Canadian protesters and the convoy, the Freedom Convoy that they had going into Ottawa. They also had some truckers blocking the road that in between the states and Canada. That was like where I believe they said 30% of all trade goes to between the countries. Um, Justin Trudeau, whatever the hell you want to call his name,
Fidel
dip, dip,
Castro, more like it.
dipshit from up north, decided that he wanted to use the military to get those guys out. And then not only that, he found that people who were donating to the truckers' cause and the Freedom Convoy's cause, he froze their accounts. If that's not very, that's just a scary thought. I can't imagine, you know, that ever happening down here in the States without complete and total, riots and people taking to the streets.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised we haven't seen much of that yet. I'd imagine in the coming days, maybe we will get some news about that type of stuff. But it seems to me, at what point do the people not start to fight back? Because I mean, that's sort of ridiculous. Um, Freezing the accounts like that, like how do you allow the government to do that? Is my
Yeah,
and not say something? I want to
yeah.
say it might have been you who sent me a TikTok, and I'm not on TikTok often, so usually if I get a TikTok sent, it's from you. Um, but it was that there's a video of a Canadian man who, yeah, it was you who sent me it. And he was just talking about how it's affecting his family and why he was out there protesting for the truckers and stuff. And you could even tell the newscaster guy was getting emotional because it's affecting people's jobs, it's
Hmm.
affecting everything. And we're seeing. I mean, I feel grateful for living in North Carolina because obviously it's not that bad here yet. Whether or not it gets there is another thing. But like just to hear him talk and the inflection in his voice and stuff like that was pretty sad because it's affecting people directly now. People and I'm waiting until they start pushing back because I mean at first you had to get vaccinated to go places up there, and then they like once you were vaccinated you still had to wear masks and stuff like that up there, and I just can't imagine the Canadian people. I mean, as much of as they get that reputation for being super nice and stuff like that, I can't imagine at what point do you cross that line and make because at some point, I mean, I think it's going to start with truckers and it already has, but I think it's
Hmm.
just going to lead to more because the people have had it, and I can't really blame them.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy. Like, so like the joke is like, you allow Americans to go to hockey games and Canadians can't. With all that free
Oh,
time,
that's
this is what the Canadians do. You know, they're a pretty peaceful people until you take away their hockey. So, but no, I just think that this is governments are people are starting really to wake up to this whole situation now where like we were sort of kind of told it's been a moving target for the last year now. Get vaccinated and we can go back to normal. Oh, but you still need to wear a mask, but we're trying to get to normal. And you keep on moving that. It's like dangling a carrot in front of a donkey, just to get him to continue to walk down. But it's gotten to the point now where people are starting to just be fed up with it. And I can't necessarily say I blame them, you know, if you go out and get vaccinated, that should have been the end of it. You know what I mean? You guys are if you're either the vaccine works or it doesn't work. It's it's fascinating to me that it's gotten to this point. And for those of you guys who have been following us since day one, we've for the most part for the first couple of months of doing the podcast and whatnot, we try to stay away from politics because we don't want it to be uh, we didn't want it to be very decisive, but with Dougie and I talking here, it just felt like in the last couple of weeks or so, it feels like things have gotten to a point where you do have to pick a side, and stand it on like how you feel and talk about it because it's not being talked about enough at this point.
Yeah, and it's affecting everything, even in, the hockey world, which is, what we started the podcast about. Like it's totally bled into it for the last 2-3 years,
Yeah,
which,
definitely.
it should have been over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, without all that being said, let's get to the juicy part of the podcast, the hockey. So did you did you actually watch the All-Star game in the skills competition?
I did, simply because it's been quite a little while since I've actually sat down and watched one. I'm sure I'll touch on this at some point, but I'm not a fan of the 3-on-3 format. I never really was. I'm okay with it for overtime, whatever. I know some people don't, but for an All-Star game, I'm not a big fan of it. But yeah, I also watched the skills competition. Um, it seems like, at least, so I'll touch on the skills competition first. It seems like they're making it more of a show than an actual skills competition, if that makes sense. It seems very
Yeah.
like scripted, or almost like they're yeah, it feels like it's scripted. Like they're writing these things to either draw views or go viral or whatever.
Hmm.
I was interested in it because they had Trevor Zegras, who obviously does the lacrosse move and stuff like that, and he's had a couple of
Hmm.
highlights with that this year, especially for that breakaway competition. But I mean, he came out, and if you've seen it, he was in a dodgeball outfit, and he did do a pretty nice, lacrosse move goal. But I thought everything around that was very hokey.
Hmm.
I mean, that goal would have been impressive if he just went down and did it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then Jack Hughes had his thing where he did a magic trick with a kid coming out of a box. Like, Jack Hughes did not have that idea. It was some PR person who was like, Jack Hughes, do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's no
Yeah.
way Jack Hughes wanted to do that. And like, I just feel like it started with, I mean, you think back when they first really did that competition, Ovechkin had the hat on and stuff like that. And I think the
Hmm.
league saw that shit, like, quote unquote funny shit like that draws views. So I think now they're encouraging players to do it. So it's becoming less of a breakaway skills competition and more of a like a like a Marvel film. Like they're
Yeah.
trying to it's a comic. It's which is fine, I guess, for what it is. But like, I want to see these players come down and make a nice move on a goal. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see it
Yeah.
be an actual hockey breakaway move,
Yeah.
not some hokey thing. That's
So maybe we're just getting old because I feel the same way. Like I watched some of the skills competition, and you see the fastest player, and that's so exciting to see. You see the accuracy, which Aho won yet again. You know,
name drop.
but then you watch that and you're just like, I would much rather just see the best skaters go down there and try to score. At this point in time, like let's be real here, like I didn't care for any of that extra shenanigans. I feel like I really feel like I just need a rocking chair and a little wooden pipe to, and give me an empty field, and I feel like I'm a grandpa right now because I'm like, this isn't how hockey was really intended to be. I get they're trying to have fun, but I guess from the league's perspective, it's all about trying to go viral. It's all about trying to have people, oh, look how that looks so cool. I'm gonna watch hockey now. And I'm sure ESPN is probably also help pushing that along as well. Hey, we want this to be, look at what the NBA does. We'll look at what some of these other leagues do as far as like when it comes to their all-star game. It's supposed to just be quote unquote fun, but some of us who grew up watching the sport want to actually see what you have, what skills you have, because we don't have the opportunity to sit down and watch every Detroit game or every Oilers game or every Kings game. We want to see some of these players that we're not so familiar with and actually see what they have, and see what happens if you put, just the guy. Well, which one had the average Joe's? Was that
It was
Trevor
Zegers.
Zegers?
It was
Yeah,
Zegers, yeah.
that was shit was impressive as fuck. I ain't gonna lie about that, right? But
But it would
I
have been
just
impressive without the costume too. That's my
I
thing.
agree. If he just put a little mask on and repped his jersey, I would have been completely cool. I feel like when you throw in the average Joe's, just was just like it just seems like it's meant to be so much flashy when there's already enough substance there. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
I think yeah, exactly. I think there's the players have enough skill where you're gonna get views, you're gonna get Instagram likes and stuff like that. It's the substance is there, like you said. It's just like they're trying to make it flashy to make it flashy.
Yeah, and that to me is where I sort of kind of just get. get old. It was good to see that the Metro won again. I do think that the Metro is the best division. And it was funny. Brendan Moore was asked when the All-Star game was going on, just how much coaching he was doing, and he was just like, none. I'm just telling the guys to go out there and have fun. So it was good to see that. Good to see um, everything sort of kind of happen the way it did with the Metro winning and whatnot. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so my boy Tom Wilson, Stanley Cup champion, Tom Stanley Cup champion Wilson, also an All-Star, so we'll add that to his name. Named obviously because of replacement for Fox, which we discussed last time. But he drew a lot of boos from Vegas every time he was announced for whether it was the skills competition or the game.
Hmm.
Rightfully so. Again, Stanley Cup champion in Vegas. So no, but he actually opened the scoring to the All Star game. He had the first goal. I mean, the Metro game was the first game anyway, but he scored first, so that was cool to see.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of the 3-on-3 format. I feel like because we grew up, and this is to your point too, us getting old or whatever. We grew up watching 5-on-5. Jeremy Roenick hitting someone, and you know what I mean, and
yeah,
it kind of being like that. So I kind of miss those days. And I mean, you could still make fancy plays and stuff, and I feel like passing plays are even more impressive when there's five guys touching the puck than three or whatever.
yeah,
I felt Giroux, which trade rumor Claude Giroux, right? Because he's all
yeah.
over the board there. He played the All Star game like I would like to see it being played. He was making toe drags. He was going between his legs.
Hmm.
He was making fancy moves, not just looking for like a backdoor pass, tic tac tap in. He was
Yeah,
actually trying to have fun out there. And I mean, I think that kind of speaks to his age too. I mean, he's a veteran guy. I think he's 34, so he's probably used to that type of All Star game as well. It was entertaining for what it was, but
yeah.
I miss the 5-on-5.
I think 4-on-4 would be perfect for it. There's a little bit less space. You can sort of kind of see there's still the openness to the game at 4-on-4, where people could just fly around one another. If a third guy is pinching in low, you can get a 2-on-1 going the other way. But when it's just 3-on, it feels like it's 2-on-1s all working day, And then there's the 2-on-0s, the breakaways and whatnot. And already have the skills competition with the breakaways. So I want to see what happens. With me, it's always been about who with the All Star game. Okay, I want to see what happens if you put Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby and Sebastian Aho on the same line. You know what I mean? That to me is what I always loved about the All Star game growing up. When you got to see Paul Kariya, Niedermeyer, and then you got to see Lidstrom all playing together. You know what I mean? Like you get to see all these different pieces come together. What happens if Sakic and Paul Kariya were on the same line? You know what I mean? That to me was always entertaining about it. And nowadays it's like they just sort of kind of just people who sort of kind of know what's going on. But because it's three players now, you're not getting those crazy collisions. Like I think everyone here would love to see what would happen if you put if Crosby and Ovechkin were on the same line for a 4-on-4 tournament. You know what I mean? I think that would just be so much fun to watch because like I said, I just think that would be a blast. Um, but yeah, so moving on from that though, our next bit of news talking about how classy Vegas fans were for the Australian game with Tom Wilson, Brad Marchand,
We
Brad
know a
Marchand.
suspension's coming. Anytime his name comes up, it's probably going to be suspension.
Yeah, there's always it's always two things with him. Either you're getting suspended or you are at, and you're doing like shitty things. So, for those who still haven't heard, essentially, Brad Marchand lost his marbles a couple nights after the All-Star game and decided to one punch Tristan Jarry, the Penguins goaltender, in the face after a play, and then go back after him again with his stick and proceeded to whack him in the face with a stick. Um, and before this even happened, Jari was trying to get a puck up on his stick and flip it over the net to give it to a fan. And Brad Marchand decided that this shouldn't happen at a hockey game, so he knocked the puck out of the stick, and then proceeded to ice it down the rink. So what is your thoughts? Because I'm going to rant on this for a good solid minute. So what are your thoughts on this, buddy?
um, I think it was well. I think it was a well-deserved suspension. 6 games. He's a repeat offender for like actual dirty hits, and other antics. So that's his thing too. He's like an antics guy. He's always stirring the pot, but he always pushes that line. I think the fact that he was fucking with Jari the whole fucking time, like the fan thing, that pissed me off,
Mhm.
right? Because Jari was just trying to give a fan a puck, but then he's in his kitchen punching him in the face, and then the stick, like obviously the dude had it out for him. Obviously he crossed the line. Obviously he has a reputation for crossing the line, so I think the suspension was warranted. My opinion on Brad Marchand is he's a good player. It's not like a Tom Wilson where it's dirty hits and Tom Wilson's like an okay player. Like Brad Marchand is like a really really skilled hockey player. He is, which sucks to say because he is such a rat, right? Like, and he's such a big piece of that Bruins team. And I mean, every time the Caps play, Marchand's on the board, so like I know firsthand how good of a player he is, right? Um, I don't understand. It's hard for me to put myself in their shoes, but in my mind, for at least for this incident, I'm like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Like, did he sleep with your mom the night before or something? Like, why are you going after this guy so hard? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, what was the point? Like, I don't understand. I wasn't watching the game, so I don't know all that happened. But I'm like clearly something Jari must have said or done ticked him off. But I feel like he's been in the league long enough to know that that's not what you do. There's no reason for that, right? Like, and actually, the whole my favorite part about it afterwards was the Hurricanes governor chirping him,
Yeah.
or the North Carolina governor chirping him after they lost to the Canes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to hear your rant about it.
Okay. So, you remember what was it? I'm trying to remember his name. Bashir, I think it was his name. A couple, I don't know,
Yeah, he played for the
maybe
Caps.
14, 15 years ago. Uh, he came through. It was think he was he playing for the Caps?
He did. I don't
Yeah.
think what.
I
Yeah, yeah, he
I
didn't do
want to
anything.
say I feel like it was a maybe a Vancouver jersey or it was like a Western Conference team, right? And he was
I think it
playing
was
against another
Vancouver.
yeah, he was playing against another team and the guys sort of kind of did like a little dirty little cross check to the back of Brashear, and then Brashear chased him across the ice and then just cold cocked him in the back of the head, knocking him out, essentially ending his career. I can't remember who he hit, but I remember like seeing that play and being like, "Wow, that's a different level of violence that we don't normally see in hockey, right?" So my question is this, and I brought this up before with last week when we were talking about uh, the Dell hit. Um, at what point in time do we start worrying about the player's safety? Right. This was Tristan Jari. What if this was Marc Andre Fleury? Right. How many games would he have gotten then? What if this was Henrik Lundqvist, right, who just retired? What if this was way more you know who has been in the league for way longer than Tristan Jari, who's maybe won a cup? How different is the conversation we're having? Because right now we're saying, oh, Marchand's being Marchand. Yeah, you shouldn't have done it. 6 games. Yep, that sounds about right. No, like this is the eighth time he's been suspended. Think about that, 8 times. That essentially that's once every what, like a year and a half for him, 2 years for him. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
At what point in time do you say, here's 30 games, you're losing, and you're not you can't play the playoffs either? When do you just make an example of the guy, right? Now, mind you, I've stated very clearly, I hate the Bruins, right? But I also feel like this is the reason that you end up hating a team, you know, completely disregarded that person. And Bruin fans are going to be saying, "Oh, well, he didn't hit Jari that hard." It's not the point. The point is he literally put his fist back and decided he wanted to punch a goaltender in the head. At what point in time do we say we need to be worried about player safety? This isn't appropriate. If Jari and him were going up and they're squared up, and they're trying to throw a fist, I wouldn't say anything. I'd be like, yeah, Jari deserved it, or Jari, at least Jari could protect himself. But Jari was in the butterfly position, not even looking at Brad Marchand when this hand came towards him. Completely unacceptable. And the fact that he's trying to appeal it now and say, oh, he doesn't think he deserves 6 games. Fuck you, dude. You're such a piece of shit. Like, you have to realize, like, I would much rather take Tomlinson's antics of playing the line a dirty hit than that shit, because it's just reckless abandonment towards another player, and then being like, oh, well, I didn't know I was doing it. I don't do anything wrong. Go fuck yourself, dude. If you really don't think that was fucked up, that's bullshit.
And that's kind of, I guess, where I'm at with it too. It's like, okay, if it's an illegal hit, all right. A lot of them, the game's going fast. The players line up for the hit. He just doesn't pull up, right?
Hmm.
Like, it's a fast play. There's not a lot of time to think and react. But to your point about Marchand, like, dude, you knew what you were doing. Like, you had time to think about it, right? Like, yeah, yeah. Like, how can you can't defend that action? You had time to think about it. You didn't have to like do it. Like, there's nothing in it. Wasn't like the game was going on, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, where we have to start thinking about, because what's to keep? Okay, so we get the 6 game sussy here. What's to keep him next time from taking like a two-handed baseball swing at someone?
yeah,
You know what I mean? After the play
yeah,
or something.
exactly. Because like so essentially he starts 6 games, right? 2 or 3 games go by, he plays the Penguins again. Now, why wouldn't he do that again? And maybe this time he'll get 10 or 12 games. But it might mean he knocks out Tristan Jarry, and now the Penguins are scrambling for a goaltender. That's my thing, because you have to realize these players are the most competitive people in the world, right? If you don't think that they don't think about that shit, you're crazy. Straight up, you are. You know what I mean? Like, if they don't think that, you don't think, when they're, especially perfect examples when this is how it's called in the NHL when people go crashing into the crease. If there was this big thing, especially with goaltenders, which are a hot commodity, hey, you've got 3 or 4 guys in the crease, whistle, blow it dead. It is what it is. But there isn't that. So, like, in my world, I feel like if you really want to protect the goaltenders, it'd immediately be blown dead. But, like, with the type of person that Brad Marchand is, it would not surprise me at all if, like, in his mind, he's thinking, okay, well, maybe I can wing one off of, maybe I'll shoot one off of his helmet, next game. I'll when I skate back around the net, he's clearing it or trying to play the puck. Maybe I'll just stick an elbow out just a little bit further, just a little bit, just to let him know I'm there. Little things like that, little antics like that, especially if these two teams meet in the playoffs. You have to believe that there's going to be bad blood. That all being said, I was very disappointed in the Penguins' reaction to sticking up for Tristan Jarry. I'm not necessarily by any stretch of imagination a Penguins fan. My grandparents are from Pittsburgh, so the first couple of years of my life, I had all the Penguins stuff and whatnot, and I've kept an eye on them over the years. But, like, that was a little bit disheartening. Felt like, even with Sidney Crosby, I felt like, dude, like, I understand you're Penguins' best player by like a country mile, but I feel like you should be trying to pull some feathers right now, because I feel like that was way, way, way uncalled for.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that's. And then we addressed it with the Senators and Aaron Dell. Like that, I do think the team needs to respond at least a little bit, and it was kind of like a kind of bad to see that they didn't.
Yeah,
So I do expect if they do face each other again, you'd hope at least there'd be. You hope Brad Marchand has to answer for his actions on the ice as well.
yeah. Well, it's Brad Marchand, so I think the only way he can answer for his actions for someone to cut his brakes. So, anyway, but moving on from that though, the Canadiens. Wow, what a dumpster fire! They've made some changes. They went ahead and brought in Marty St. Louis, which I thought was an interesting hire. I didn't think that would have been my first choice, but with Jeff Gordon, not the NASCAR driver, the player agent, Jeff Gordon, he made these decisions. I think he's trying to see what he actually has in the organization as far as talent goes. Um, and I think he's essentially using Mario St. Louis as a gauge for talent. But what were your thoughts on them good old Canadians of de Montreal.
I saw something I'm not gonna get the meme right at all, but basically the premise was like it's funny like the your coach is like the best forward you have on your team or something like that. It was like yeah, best offensive player that you have on your team, and so I mean they played the Caps for his first game.
Hmm.
The Caps won, but again it was Montreal, so it was like kind of hard to judge. I don't know. The whole Montreal head coach needs to speak French thing. I think really limits the amount of people they can hire. Right? I'm not a fan of that, but it's a Montreal tradition. So um, again, I don't know. I didn't even know Marty St. Louis was a coach. To be 100% honest, it was like at first I was like, "Is this an actual NHL move that happened?"
Yeah.
Like,
So
like I didn't know he'd been coaching teams.
he hasn't been coaching teams. Apparently, this is his first coaching gig. I think this is no. I think they said that he was coaching Pee Wee hockey. So
So I mean, I guess maybe to draw some attention to the team that's maybe sort of positive because everything else is negative.
I
I don't know
don't
why
know.
you do it unless you're going full tank, which I mean Montreal doesn't have to try to tank, they just are. So I don't yeah, I mean they're not making that move long term and I don't think it's a move that you're trying to turn the team around. I
Hmm.
think it's a move that like maybe generate maybe move the attention off of how bad you suck
Yeah.
and then maybe I mean yeah I don't know I don't think it'll last. I don't think he's an NHL head coach, but maybe I'm wrong,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah.
don't want to. I don't know. I could see him. It's like the Rob Brindamore experiment, right? Where like it could either go really well or it could go really poorly, really quick, either direction. The Hurricanes were lucky that it went well with Rod, but like I could easily see him actually pick up a team and get the team rolling in the right direction. But right now, it's like I don't understand why you bring in a coach now, though. I think maybe that's more my point. This team's not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like it's the for those who are listening, like we a couple of episodes ago, we were making the comment of which teams would reach negative 100 goals. Yeah, in 2 weeks, Montreal has added what 20 some odd goals in the negative department, so where they're on a negative 85. Like how much more negative do you really want this team to go? And is bringing in a new coach really going to help? You know, I don't think it does. You should just roll it out with the other guy. Say, hey, let's see what's going on with it. I don't know if Mario St. Louis is going to be able to help because I don't think he's won a game yet with them either. I think after losing to the Caps, I think the following game was against the Blue Jackets, where the Blue Jackets scored with like 8 or 9 seconds left to win the game, and then they had another just horrible game where I think they got shut like 4 or 5-0. So at this point in time, I did see that they did bring a different goaltender, Hammond, who was I believe playing with the Blues in the Blues organization. Um, they did a trade for him just so their young goaltender Primo, so he's not getting all these horrible starts, which it's just ridiculous. It really is. I can't believe that that's an NHL team right now, and it's a Canadian team, and it's the sort of kind of like the Canadians' pride jewel, being Montreal, with all the cups that they have. Um, it's crazy.
I think you kind of you made a good point last week. Yeah, with it being Canadian teams an issue, but no one's in the arena to actually see it.
Yeah.
So that's a
Yeah, I
positive.
mean, I mean, maybe this is why Canada shut down. Like, guys, you really don't want to see the Canadians play, so we're just gonna shut it all down. But but yeah, no. And then the other trade that's happened is the Canadians traded Tyler Toffoli to the Calgary Flames in exchange for a first, 2022 first, 2024 fifth, Tyler Pitlick, and Emil Hyman. I think that trade sort of kind of that just means it's like all or nothing going into this first round of this draft. I mean, they've got the Canes first round pick this year, their own, and now Calgary. I can't imagine, if their scouting report isn't amazing and on point, like it's going to be Seattle Kraken 2.0 essentially because all of these players are, It's when you're building up an organization, you start trading away your valuable talent for draft picks. To actually draft talent, you know. So I hope they're doing a really good job and you know dotting those I's and crossing those T's. If not, they're gonna be horrible for next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean back to that draft point too. Look at Cole Caufield. I mean, he came out in the playoffs last year, but he's had a pretty and he's one of their top guys, right? Besides Nick
Yeah,
Suzuki, who was their All Star, but like he's had a very very poor kind of second season, if you want to call it's more or less his first. But yeah, I mean he was on the fourth line versus the Caps, and that's not a deep team,
yeah,
and he's been up and down from the minors. So I mean, I'm not by any means, I'm not saying he's a bust, but it's like if you're gonna trade away your talented players to get picks, you want those picks to be able to step in and help you win some games, off the bat and make it fun and exciting to watch. And
yeah. Well,
I think Montreal wanted more out of Caulfield at this point.
yeah. So I was hearing on NHL radio that Cole Caulfield's player was Marty St. Louis. So and since he's sort of kind of came back up, I think he has like he does Caulfield now has 3 goals in like 4 games now or something like that. Like so he's finally starting to like get his gears going. I feel like whenever you trade the coach like this, it does sort of kind of get players motivated to start performing again. Um, because once a team, and this goes for like beer league captaincies as well. Like once a captain loses the team, or once a coach loses the team, it's really hard to gain their respect back. It's really hard to like get them to commit to actually wanting to play the way you want them to play, and I feel like that's sort of kind of where Canadians were at. Unfortunately, you know, it's why we're saying it's so weird that they did it now because you're at the halfway point and they're so horrible they're not going to make the playoffs. You would have thought that hey, in the first 15 games, 20 games, you see this, you fire the coach, then maybe you can right the ship in the last 2 or 3 months of the season and get into a playoff spot. But now they're so far behind, but they could win every game that's left and they'd still wouldn't make the playoffs. You know?
Well, to that point too, like, and they're starting to sell. So you're bringing in a new coach who's going to be putting in a new system. B, he's going to be all new players. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like the roster is going to change so much. There really is. It kind of, and I think that's the point. You made a really good point about that. Like, why now? Why bring in a new coach now? It makes no sense. The season was not savable, and now you're just gonna just turn the team upside down on the roster too. I mean, if you were gonna make unless they were just trying to start the hiring process for like a new long term
Mm-hmm.
coach, and they were like, all right, let's just bring in St. Louis. I agree. I just like why now? It would have made sense maybe a month and a half ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Which so kind brings back to like what Regional West said though is I think what Gordon is trying to do is he's trying to see who in the organization is actually worth a damn and who isn't. And I think that's I wouldn't want to put that onto a brand new coach. Like obviously Mario St. Louis is a hockey guy. Lives and breathes it. But I don't know if that's the right move for that. That I don't want to know if I want that guy to be the guy who's determining the fate of the organization. Because what if he decides like,
Yeah.
hey, this player he doesn't like this player. This player gets sent off to another team and just does amazingly well. You know what I mean? Like you're essentially bringing in a rookie scout to figure out if you actually have NHL caliber players or not. And I don't know if that's exactly the right call or something I would necessarily have gone about doing.
And just to kind of touch on the trade, I think it was a huge pickup for Calgary. I think they have I've liked their team for a while. I think they have a really strong team up front. I'm not like I think Matthew Kachuk has scored like 100 between the leg goals since he started playing. He continues to do that. So I think Toffoli is a good addition for them. I mean, he was huge in LA when LA was winning cups, and then when Montreal got him, he was really really good for Montreal in the playoffs.
Hmm.
So he's proven that he is a great playoff player. And I think right now that's kind of what Calgary's looking for. I think they have a team to go far in the
Hmm.
playoffs. So yeah, I think it was a great trade for both. I mean, it was a great trade for Calgary, I guess, with the draft pick and stuff. We'll see about
Yeah,
Montreal,
what Montreal can
but I
do.
mean, they were sellers anyway. But I think Calgary made a good trade, good move
Yeah,
getting
I
him.
I think Tyler Foley is we always talk about the Wilsons and the Marshaws and like, hey, if it's these are players that you would love to have on every team would love to have, but I think Tyler Foley really is the epitome of that. He's very much like He's a little bit of a grinder, but he's got some skill to him. Um, and I feel like he's just a great player. He did really well with the Kings. I know that Justin Williams couldn't speak highly enough about him when they were with their time together. But yeah, he's been great, and I think that's going to put Calgary in a position where now it's going to be up to Edmonton to sort of kind of match that. If Edmonton's going to have to get by Calgary if they want to make the playoffs, right? So you know this was sort of kind of Calgary's response to Vander Kane, and Tyler Toffoli is just a significantly better player. So now it's going to be back on
Agreed.
Edmonton. Okay, well we filled up this gap. Now what are you guys going to do? And I absolutely love that the Battle of Alberta. I think that's a great matchup. It's great for the sport. It's great for the game. Those two teams absolutely hate each other, and it's entertaining to see how that's going to play. I would love to see them play again in the playoffs this year if possible.
Yeah, and we're just a couple years removed from the Zach Cassian incident and all that. So yeah, I agree. It'd be cool to see them meet in the playoffs. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think Edmonton's going to make it. But yeah, like you said, it's rivalries like that are must see
Yeah,
hockey
for
for
sure,
sure.
for sure. Switching gears a little bit, you want to go into the Caps and what's been going on with the Caps?
Well, I'll say this: I'm glad we're not doing video this week because I don't want to see people see me cry. But no, it's not look. I mean, no. What can, I really don't want to talk about. No, it's not. It's depressing. No, um, so it's not looking good. I mean, it's they're in the playoffs and they'll make the playoffs. But I think they're gonna make the playoffs because they had such a good start. It's been very bad this last month. Actually, this last over since the turn. What really since the mid December, they've just been streaking downwards. Um, Ovechkin had to miss a couple games because of COVID. He couldn't travel to Canada. He missed one game in the U.S. because of COVID, and then he couldn't travel to the Montreal game because of their restrictions, which is another thing. But we already stepped across the politics. Um, so then, so yeah, he missed two games. I think the Capitals beat Montreal. They lost to Ottawa, a team who was on a back to back, by the way, the afternoon before and lost that game. Like and they lost to Columbus the week of the All Star
Hmm.
game. So it was like it's frustrating. It's extremely frustrating. Backstrom's back. Kuznetsov. They're missing Oshie still, but like for the most part, and Mantha. But Mantha started skating, so Mantha should be playing by the end of the year,
Hmm.
month here, or hopefully at the beginning of March. Which would be a nice addition. But even when he was playing at the beginning of the year, he wasn't really doing too much. So on top of him having to recover, and get back to game speed after a 3 month, surgery and recovery, it's how much can you expect out of him? The team's finding ways to lose games, to be honest, and I don't want to point out Laviolette because I like him as a coach. I think they might have to make a move to maybe get a new coach to coach the power play. Blaine Forsythe's been with the team for a while, but at this point, it's becoming comical,
Hmm.
right? You look at the names who are on the power play. Even when Ovechkin was out, I mean, you have John Carlson, you have you know Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Wilson. They should find ways to score goals, and not only they're not scoring goals, they're finding ways to let other teams score goals on them,
Yeah, yeah.
shorthanded. So it's like it's getting really frustrating, especially in games like the one they lost to the Blue Jackets. They tied it up in the third, and then they just let the Blue Jackets walk around them and score. And then it was like you knew the game was not going to make overtime, and sure enough, the Blue Jackets hit a couple empty netters. But it's not only that they're losing; it's the ways they're losing. They have no killer instinct, and they're really not a dominant team like you'd expect that roster
Hmm.
to be. Again, I don't think it's because of the players who are out. I really don't want to blame goaltending. I think both of the goaltenders have high ceilings. I think right now they are going through a funk. So it really doesn't matter if you're starting Samsonov or Vanacek. They're both kind of struggling there a little bit. Um, Sammy let in some very soft ones in that Columbus game. Um, but that's kind of his MO, right? Like he'll let in an easy one, but he makes outstanding saves. But at this point, it's starting to get frustrating to watch. I'm not Mr. Armchair Coach GM gonna walk off the ledge here or whatever. But I would like to see them turn it around here shortly. I don't think anything's drastic needs to be made. Any drastic moves need to be made. I still don't anticipate them to really make too many moves at the trade deadline. Their name's been tossed around with getting a goalie, a Fleury they were talking about, but I don't think that's going to happen. Um, there was mention of bringing, and I saw this today actually, Yarrow Halak maybe coming back, but the Caps already been there, done that,
Hmm.
right? They're not going to do that. I don't think they're going to bring in a goalie. Um, and then I saw today Vancouver's trying to move some pieces, and they said pretty much everyone but Pedersen and Hughes are like untouchable, right? So like that leaves Besser and JT Miller open, and the Caps name was tossed around in there. But I think that's just because they're struggling for offense right now, and those are two offensive guys, you know. So I don't think they're gonna make a move like that, and I don't think they should either. But it's just frustrating because they're gonna come into the playoffs kind of streaking
Hmm.
downwards. Granted, they have a month and a half, 2 months to turn it around. It's just like, listen, right now we're kind of living and dying off of a good start to the
Yeah.
season. And I've been saying like they'll turn the power play around. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Well, inevitable is not coming. So,
Yeah.
like you have to. It's frustrating as a fan. I'll
So
say
if
that.
you could, if you could, like wave your magical wand and change one thing like right off the bat that would dramatically affect the overall team performance, what do you think you need to do to get the team winning again?
Ooh, um, you have to fix. Honestly, you have to fix the power play. I can't. I mean, the defense has always been holy. I think Kevin McCarthy, the assistant coach who runs the D, has done a better job at cleaning that up. Um, Obviously Sammy and Vanacek have inconsistencies, but I don't think they're bad goalies by any means, and I can't blame the losses on them. The offensive talent is there. Uh, I can't really blame the system either because they've had success with Laviolette as a coach. Um, I think it lives you live and breathe on special teams, and I think I want to make excuses with all the injuries and stuff like that, but ideally, I know that's not the case.
Hmm.
So you fix special teams. I think that's what you look at first before you make any drastic moves. You hope when Mantha gets back, and Oshie gets back and stuff like that. But it'd be special teams. I'm not if I'm McClellan. I'm not trying to make a big move at the deadline. I don't think you need it. I don't think you want to try and fix a hole and make another one by making a big roster
Hmm.
change. So I'd really focus on special teams and then closing out games. Um, as Capitals fans know, the Caps are a team that will play for 2 periods, take a period off, and lose the game in that period. It could be the first period, second period, or
Yeah.
third period. They'll dominate for 2 periods, and then the one period is the one that bites them in the ass. Either they're trying to catch, a team by 3 or 4 goals over 2 periods, and they just can't do it, or they blow a lead in the third. Um, so that's been a consistent issue, regardless of who was coach, regardless of who was playing. It it just feels like that's been an issue for so long. I think they need to focus on having that killer instinct and really coming out strong and just playing strong consistently for a full 60-minute game. But yeah, and then the power play.
All right.
But with all that said, and through tears, I'm gonna ask you, how are the Canes looking? You got an all-star coach, a a Jack Adams winning coach, and whose name should be in there again? Are they still living up to what they
Uh,
what they appear to be?
well, uh, last week was just a bitch of a week. Um, Having lost three or four. Uh, the highlight of the week, the one win was against Boston, 6-0 shutout. Uh, I'm not gonna lie, that by itself, I'm not even worried about the week based on the fact that you beat the Bruins 6-0. But yeah, no, the so you had a 4-3 overtime loss with Toronto where Marner was just on fire. The guy was unstoppable. And with the 3-on-3 overtime, it just takes the smallest, miscalculation on something because it's 3-on-3 now it gets magnetized into a much bigger problem, and it goes the other way, and Marner scores. The 4-3 loss with Ottawa and a 3-2 loss with Minnesota. Um, I'm not worried about it because of this one fact, right? So like the year the Canes won the cup, they were on fire. They were blazing by everyone, right? And they were constantly just wrecking them. And then they had a stretch of about a week and a half or so where they lost like 4 or 5 games straight, and then they picked it right back up and they kept on going again. Sometimes the you want to get the losing done earlier before the playoffs start, so you have that experience, you have that excuse me, the issues that arise then, because it's if the whole season, we've seen this with Tampa Bay especially, if the whole season goes easy for you, you can get a first round exit where with Columbus. So I'd much rather them go through the adversity now than go through and have a nice and easy season. This week we got Florida and Nashville, which are going to be two really good teams. It's really going to be, especially with Florida, with them sort of kind of leading the league. It's going to be a good test to see where the Hurricanes are. I'm pretty confident that with the 3 days off they had since the Minnesota game, they'll be able to sort of kind of come out and do their thing. It's been interesting to see how lines have sort of kind of shaken out with Terabine still being out. I think that the first line being Aho, Niederreiter, and Svechnikov. They're growing into some things. They're figuring some things out still, and it's still going to be okay. It's so funny whenever you go into the Hurricanes Facebook pages, you would think the sky is falling based on how people are reacting to it, and it's really not that big of a deal at the end of the day. It's you don't want to see it super consistent, but it's not the end of the world. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens this next week. So the Canes still have a game in hand over the Rangers and still have a 3 point lead on them. So, but yeah, the Canes are struggling a little bit since the All-Star break, but I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, that's kind of my take on just what I've seen. Yeah, and like I said, I still think Rod's name should be there at least in the talks for the Jack Adams, regardless of how the season plays out, because he's done a hell of a job with that team.
Yeah, he really has. I It's funny to me that people seem to forget how 4 or 5 years ago the Canes hadn't made the playoffs in 10 years, you know, and now they're pretty much a consistent talk about being a favorite or being the team that's going to go all the way. And the way that they're built right now, I really think that this is their year. With TVA ended up getting into a fight with Charlie McAvoy during the Boston Bruin games when McAvoy sort of kind of made a little bit of a run at Aho. Um, I've made comments talking about how I feel like you know either you go ahead and you make the plan to sign TDA or you trade him because he's too good of a player not to try to get something back for him. I really think the Canes should just need to make a push to sign him and get him locked in for a couple of years. I think that this player is the real deal for the Hurricanes. He sort of kind of brings that level of arrogance that the Hurricanes you sort of kind of have to have in your organization. You have to have those players who think that their shit don't stink. For the Caps, it's Wilson. And for some of these other teams, it's your Brad Marchand, it's these are really important players that you have to have. They have to be able to have that swagger to them to think that they're going to win every game. Tony DeAngelo does that, and he's a hell of a hockey player. Him being willing to fight Charlie McAvoy, who's got some size on him, and being willing to throw down. It shows me that he's ready to commit to a team. He just needs to see that team commit to him. Um, I read a report earlier that was essentially it was a listing of sports agents were essentially listed out teams that they're actively telling their clients, their players to avoid, and Carolina was listed number 3 on that list as teams that agents are telling their players to avoid. Um, and the reasoning behind it was essentially that the Canes owner is cheap. The Canes owner isn't really willing to pay players or what they really deserve. And I think that we're at a point now where there's too many of those rumors going around the Hurricanes, and they really have to sort of address it because everyone sort of kind of knew that they were lowballing Dougie Hamilton with a $6.5 million offer. We all know that he was really worth probably closer to 8.5, right? I don't know if he's necessarily worth 9, but like a solid 8 million. Right? So we see that, and then you see the Hurricanes overpay for Kotkaniemi. So like you want to see the Canes make rational decisions that positively affect the team. And right now, the best decision that they can make is to go ahead and lock in Tony DeAngelo. And at that point in time, now you have Tony DeAngelo, Slavin, Pesci, Shea. Those are your four that's your four core. That's your top four that you make sure that that stays intact. Maybe your 5-6 become a little bit weaker if you can't, or maybe your 5-6 just become journeymen, which is what they've done this season with your Ian Cole and your Brandon Smith. But the Canes have got to lock in TDA, so they've got their playmaker on the back end, and people end up making make big plays and get things going for the Canes.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he'd be willing to sign with the Hurricanes too, because they were the ones who gave him the shot, right? When he needed it, they gave him the shot, and he's done his part. Now I feel like the Canes need to do theirs and really trying to extend
Oh,
him.
definitely, definitely. Um, did you hear what was going on with Vegas and Mark Stone and good old Mr. Jack Eichel?
I heard Jack Eichel's
Yeah,
coming back. Hopefully
yeah.
Wednesday is what they're saying. So
So
tomorrow. I didn't hear
so
much
the
about
way
Mark
that they're
Stone.
able to get Eichel to play is that they're putting Mark Stone on long-term IR for the next foreseeable future is what the
Yeah, it sounds like a very
yeah,
Tampa Bay Lightning
exactly. It's
move.
exactly what I thought too. I'm pretty sure we'll see him first day. When do the playoffs start? Like last week in April this year. Well, I'm almost positive we'll see him
Yeah.
then, feeling just fine. But uh, I don't like this at all. Like not necessarily that I want Eichel to return and good on the Knights for being able to get him. I'm cool with that aspect of it, but it does feel like this sort of kind of has the makings of the Tampa Bay situation all over again, where they're going to completely take advantage of the cap situation. Which my thing is teams are going to if you by allowing this loophole to exist, more teams are going to take advantage of it. Oh, so and so, you know, he accidentally fell down the stairs, quote unquote, and he's got a bum ankle right now. He's week to week. Right before the trade deadline comes. Oh, looks like he's going to need quote unquote surgery. You know, he's going to be out for the remainder of the season until game one of the playoffs. I think you've opened up a very Pandora box. Yeah. Pandora box.
Try it again. Yeah, there you go.
You've opened up this Pandora's box where you can essentially allow for people to lie and do whatever they need to do if it means winning. And the heart of hockey is the integrity behind the game, right? And that's what the honesty that players have, the gentleman's agreement. You make a dirty hit, you have to fight for it. The little things like that, that's what makes the game so special, right? So on the business side of things, if we're now allowing this gaping loophole to exist, where if a player is put onto long-term IR, it no longer counts towards the playoffs. I just think that you're just asking for trouble, and I'm almost positive this will be addressed at the next governors meeting. I'm surprised it wasn't addressed after Tampa won, but if Vegas does the same thing and they have any type of postseason success, we're gonna find ourselves in the same situation. We'll be talking about this all over the summer.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think it is something that does need to be addressed, and especially with the back-to-back cups, I'm surprised they didn't address it. When Tampa had that with Kucherov. Yeah, I agree. I think it's the more teams are able to get away with it, the more teams are going to try to
Mm-hmm.
exploit it, right? Because they know they can. Um, I think I'm pumped for Eichel, right? Like he's going to play. Obviously, who's who knows how good he's going to be, but that's not the issue, right? The issue is like when Eichel's on his game, he's on his game, and this is just another team, for a second kind of straight year where technically salary cap wise, Eichel shouldn't be able to
Right.
play. And then when the salary cap goes away in the playoffs, okay, now we can fit him in. Like I agree with you. I think the more it has to be addressed. Um, do you think it should have been addressed last season? But I definitely think they will be this year, especially if it's one of those things where Mark Stone and magically comes back and the playoffs are about to start, right?
Yeah.
Like, then it's like, can you really say that was a coincidence? I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Coincidence? I think not. Little Incredibles quote of the
But it's good.
day.
It'll be good to see. It'll be good to see Eichel play on Wednesday. Watch, he's gonna score a goal in his first game and set the hockey
Oh,
world on
I
fire.
100% agree. Um, I'm. It's good to see him just getting back on the horse, because there was so much questions when he had this neck injury. If he was ever going to be able to play again, the surgeries, the ups and downs. Not to mention, it's just going to be nice seeing him in a jersey that isn't Buffalo. I feel like
Oh,
he's a
for sure.
player that a lot of people would love to get behind, but it's so hard to get behind him when he's playing for the shittiest, one of the shittiest cities in the Northeast. So, but yeah, it's definitely that's gonna be good to see. I think we're the Avs Vegas is gonna be that's gonna be a great matchup. Those games are gonna be must watch TV.
It's cool that he's coming back versus them too, like that, because I think those are the two
Yeah,
top teams in the West.
yeah. So, but I think that does it for today. As always, guys, we appreciate any type of feedback. Let us know how we're doing. If you love us, if you hate us, if you want to cut our breaks, just let us know. Um,
Brad Marchand does after we threw him under the bus.
so you can get in contact with us at Flippin Pucks and Chuckin Knucks at gmail.com. You can also swing by the website, Flippin Pucks and chuckinknucks.com. Read our blogs, look at our t-shirts, buy our t-shirts. And we appreciate the listen. We love the like, subscribe, all that good jazz, all that good stuff. Anything else you want to say to the beautiful people, Doggy?
Yeah. Actually, I've come to think of it. Yeah, I don't think Brad Marchand would slash our tires. More so, he could just use his nose and just put a hole in there. So, I'll be making sure there's no like rats scurrying around my car and trying to start something up since we threw him under the bus. But
You
yeah,
gotta
no,
you
that's
gotta
about
look
it.
for you
Yeah,
gotta look for the
comment.
the rat's
Ask us
nests. You gotta look for the
questions.
rat's nests.
Exactly. No, no, just kind of what you said. Just let us know how you think we're doing, and if you have any questions or anything you want us to talk about, feel free to comment it below.
Alrighty, guys. Thanks for listening, and have a good night.
Bye, guys.